The biggest misconception I see with chronic inflammation is people think if you can't see it, then you don't have it.
Have you ever thought about how the food you eat could be impacting inflammation in your body? It's a real concern for many of us, and it can seriously affect our health and well-being. Today, I talked with Shelley Loving, a nutrition chef and author who turned her husband's own life-threatening health scare into a mission to help others understand how to manage chronic inflammation through nutrition. Shelley's here to share her expert insights on the connection between what we eat and inflammation, along with practical tips for making healthier choices that fit into our busy lives. So if you're ready to take charge of your health and learn how to feel your best, you won't want to miss this episode. Please note the content on Hack to Health is for informational purposes only and not medical advice. Consult a health provider for medical concerns. Opinions expressed are those of the guests and may not reflect my views or those of the podcast. Good afternoon, Shelley. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joe, for having me. I love talking about this topic today. Thank you for letting me have your platform to spread my message to as many people as I can.
Of course. You know, someone hears inflammation and then they hear food and we're eating food and this is causing this inflammation. Like, how does that exactly affect us?
There's many things that cause inflammation, and we can dive into that a little bit later. But in food specifically, there are foods that cause inflammation in our body, and there are foods that reduce inflammation in our body. So we want to try to be aware of how many of those inflammatory foods we're eating, because we don't want to be feeding our body inflammation when all the other things in our life are already causing chronic inflammation. I think the best thing that we can do is just be more aware of what we're eating. And I am not perfect, and I don't think we should, eat like, perfect 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. But I think we can find this glorious balance. And I'm just trying to bring awareness to this topic so that people can be more cognizant about the ingredients that are in the foods they're buying, and then the ingredients they're putting in their recipes as well.
For people wondering, what is the inflammation that's in us?
So we have two types of inflammation. So let me just dive into that, because it will explain your question a little bit better. So there are two types of inflammation. There's acute inflammation and chronic inflammation. Acute inflammation is that good kind. We love it. That's our body's reaction to when we get injured. For instance, if you break an ankle, it swells up. If you cut your finger really bad, it turns red the next day. That's acute inflammation. That's your body in a fight or flight mode, going to that source and trying to protect it. That's great. We need that. The problem with chronic inflammation is it's silent. We can't see chronic inflammation. It lives in our body, and different things cause it. Lots of things cause it. So toxins in the air, the chemicals that we're using in our home cleaning products, stress in our lives, lack of sleep, and poor diet. So all of these things go in our body. A lot of times it's foreign objects that go into our body, like toxins and or ultra processed foods, and they go in our body, and our bodies don't recognize it. So our body goes into the fight or flight mode of trying to get it out of our body. That's where chronic inflammation comes in. Well, our body, when it's constantly doing these repetitive steps of fight or flight, fighting the things that we're doing and putting into our bodies, it's called chronic inflammation, and it starts building up in our body to constantly trying to fight these things for us silently. When our bodies can't keep up with that anymore, because you can't stay in a fight or flight forever. And when your body just constantly stays in that state, it starts breaking down. Whether you start getting frequent, colds, or seasonal allergies are heightened, or you have insomnia, or maybe you're even diagnosed with a disease or a chronic condition. It's going to start small, and it manifests into something large if we don't get a hold of that chronic inflammation that's going on in our body to try to protect us. But ultimately, it can't keep doing that forever. We have to help it out.
Would you say that there's people that it affects more? Is it something to do with how old you might be, or how much you might weigh, or things like that, or no difference?
Unfortunately, it is not prejudice. It affects every human on the planet. We are just designed that way as humans. So even if you're 5 years old and you get an infection, you've got some chronic inflammation going on in your body. So unfortunately, it's not privy to a certain body type or age or nationality or gender.
Yeah. How about like misconceptions about inflammation? Maybe some people think, oh, this is not going to affect me because I eat a healthy diet and I'm, doing everything right.
Yeah. So chronic inflammation, what a lot of people don't understand is it is the root issue for most health conditions, not all, but most. Meaning, if we were all free of chronic inflammation, most disease and conditions wouldn't even exist. because what's happening is our bodies are creating these over a extended amount of time with this chronic inflammation issue. So the biggest misconception I see with chronic inflammation is people think if you can't see it, then you don't have it. And because a lot of the Western medicine approaches and the doctors that we see really aren't talking about it a whole lot on a elementary level to where we understand what's going on. If we get some blood work back and they actually do measure your inflammation markers, which is rare, but if they do and they say, oh, you've got some inflammation, they don't explain what it is. They don't tell you if it's acute or chronic. They don't tell you what it is, how you can reduce it. They'll just tell you, cut back on your red meat, eat less sugar, and be on your merry way. So I just think that if the more people can understand it, the better they are equipped to own their health, really, at the end of the day. My husband had a massive heart attack 10 years ago, and that's why I talk about this, because I went to 2 nutrition schools and learned how much chronic inflammation affects our overall health in a good way or a bad way. So once we reduce that chronic inflammation in his body and in mine, we've never felt better. He has reversed all the damage to his heart from the heart attack. So we are living examples of the power of putting focus on an anti-inflammatory lifestyle through diet and exercise and practices. It can really prevent a lot of these health issues today. But a lot of people, the misconception is they don't know what it is, they don't know where it is, and they think they have to see it.
Yeah, like you said, it's hidden. Obviously, nothing we can point to. Do you think that it's something that is like maybe overlooked in traditional medicine, or do you think maybe there's just medical professionals that are not putting so much of an emphasis on it, maybe lack of what they learn in school?
You hit the nail on the head. I think it's overlooked. For sure, it's overlooked. Part of it, in my opinion, I don't believe that it's intentional. I believe a lot of the medical doctors today do the best they can with what they have and what they're taught. They go to school, they learn a skill, and they deliver that skill. So, and a lot of that is involving prescription drugs as an answer. So there are exceptions out there, and doctors are wonderful. I am not anti-doctor. They saved my husband's life, and I love them. My issue is there's not enough education around this topic. So I kind of tell people to envision, for people that aren't watching us and just listening, I envision this platform, like a horizontal line across your life, like right in the middle of your body. And I feel like it's like the foundation for our health is to focus on reducing chronic inflammation through all the steps I mentioned before. When we do that, I'm not saying that it's going to heal you immediately, but what I am saying is we're setting our bodies up for a solid foundation, whether we are already healthy and we are now in a prevention state, or we have some healing to do because we have some health issues going on. We're setting our body for a solid foundation so that you can begin the healing process. I am not anti-medicine. I do believe that when we need it, it's great. I just don't think it should be a first option. And I kind of teach people to really shift your thinking on, instead of living in a defense mode and a Band-Aid mode where you're constantly just putting Band-Aids on your health situations, focus on chronic inflammation for a few months and just see how you feel. Then do the other rituals, whether that's medication or if you're not a Western medicine person, whatever that may be. But I just wish we would focus more on this topic on a very simple level, because it really is a simple concept. And then our bodies will do the magical thing that Mother Nature intended them to do, which is to live healthy.
Right. That's the goal, of course. Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Some inflammation can be beneficial. And I guess what I was wondering was, if that's the case, how would someone determine, you mentioned inflammation markers, I'm assuming that's through labs, but how would someone balance like how much to reduce without maybe compromising natural defenses within the body?
I've never come across anyone that's lowered their chronic inflammation so much that it's a detriment ever. So I can't really answer that question. I just tell people to keep it top of mind and practice things. Don't become obsessed about it, but, try to do those very simple things of getting your sleep and doing fun things that bring you joy and moving your body and spending a little bit of quiet time, stilling the mind, and eat nutritious foods. When you do these things, your body is going to get in a state of healing and functional health. So I can't answer that in the way you probably want me to, but I've never been told that you can overdo your inflammation reduction. because so
Yeah.
many things are bringing it to us, Joe, like everything in this, especially in America, that we have working against us physically to stay healthy, especially, mental health, even imbalance of the gut. Our immune system starts in the gut, and so many of us we have an imbalance microbiome that's causing us to be ill. And so that all of that causes inflammation. So I don't think, I'm not going to say you can't, but acute inflammation is that good kind. And that chronic inflammation, I don't think we're ever going to eliminate it, but we can definitely work to reduce it for healthy living.
Yeah, just listening to your body. I'm trying to understand the science behind using food as a tool to combat this inflammation. How did you get into this? Can you explain the sort of science behind that?
Sure. So my husband was my science project. When
Okay.
he almost died, he had 100% blockage in one of his arteries and had a stent put in. And when the doctor came out of surgery and held my shoulders and said, "Mrs. Loving, your husband is a very lucky man," that resonated with me, because 2 days later we went home and we were like, what now? Like, you didn't die, and you're 41 and I'm 38, and we don't want this life forever. We are young. We want to be healthy. We want to travel. We want to be great parents to our kids who were almost grown at the time. It's like, what do we do? And I said, well, I'm definitely going to clean up what we're eating. Since I'm the cook in the family, I'm going to conquer what we're eating. And that put me on a 3-year path of a ton of wall hitting, of contradictory information on Google. I ended up going to nutrition school in a holistic approach, because I wanted to try to do it naturally. And so that's what I did. And I would learn a week's worth of content at school and then apply it to the kitchen. I would learn, apply. I did this for a year. And the biggest lesson I learned through the first nutrition school and then in the second one was the correlation between chronic inflammation and what we're eating, and then how our body adjusts to that. And so when I started eliminating the key food groups of inflammatory foods, it changed us. Like, within 3 weeks, me personally, who wasn't the quote unquote sick one, my eyes were wider. My skin was glowing. My joint pain went away. My dull headaches went away. My brain fog at 2 p.m. went away. I was sleeping more soundly. All of these things started happening within 3 weeks of me eliminating some of these inflammatory food groups. I couldn't believe it. So when I started feeling better, and I was actually doing this for him to be that supportive wife, that's when the light bulb went off. And I'm like, there's something to this. So then every 6 months, we would go to his cardiologist, or he would go to his cardiologist appointment, get his EKG and get his blood work. Every 6 months, all the numbers were improving. And I just kept doing it, because I'm like, there's something to this. My husband was, not skeptical, but, well, he was skeptical, but willing to do it, because he wanted to be healthy. And we wanted him off these prescription drugs that his prognosis was 7 drugs for the rest of his life. And we both said, no, thanks. So now he's down to 1. And we are proud of that. And we did most of it through food. Now, we have lifestyle changes as well. We adhere to an anti-inflammatory diet, probably 85% of our life. And it works. It really works. I have a funny story. If you have time, I have like a 1-minute funny story.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I started this business in 2018. So after I started noticing everything was helping, I'm like, I need to help more people. So I created my business called Shelley Can Help. Fast forward to 2023. Yeah, March of 23. I have been preaching anti-inflammatory living for the last 5 years, and I had never ordered my inflammation markers in my own personal blood work. And I had this aha moment of, why haven't I done that? Like, you have to order it. It's pretty, they don't give it to you if you don't ask. And so I said, I have to do this. And I'll tell you what, Joe, the 3 days that it took me to get my blood work back, I had so much anxiety, because I'm like, what if I had imposter syndrome? It's like, what if all I've been teaching these people is a lie? What if it really isn't the food, and it was like all the exercise we've been doing? Or, like, I had all of these things in my head, and I was really sweating bullets for 3 days, and I got my blood work back, and they were all completely normal. And I was like, oh, thank God, I could keep doing my job. But I was worried that because I had never done it myself. And I'm like, I'm practicing what I'm preaching by eating the foods, but I had never been tested. So I'm happy to report. I can also tell you my blood work shows that an anti-inflammatory diet really does have some power in it.
That's incredible. Wow. I mean, because I can imagine the anxiety going through your head. So, like, how did you kind of devise your approach to managing inflammation through food? Maybe different than what you might read in traditional methods.
My biggest umbrella in my business is simple and simplicity, because I didn't have that when I was trying to gather all the information. Everything was complicated, everything was contradictory, everything was very restrictive. I needed to learn in a way where it was very simple to absorb and very simple to implement into my very busy life. So when I started my business, I said, I'm going to have a different approach. I want people to understand that this lifestyle is doable. I want people to understand that it's not super complicated, and you don't have to get a dietitian degree to understand very simple ways that you can change the ingredients in your kitchen. Because I'm talking to the everyday home cook that's just trying to get a meal on the table. I'm not talking to like-minded people like dietitians and stuff. I am talking to Sally, who has 2 kids and a husband on high blood pressure medicine. I'm talking to her because she's the cook in the family, and I want to teach her how she can just switch out a few ingredients in her kitchen and learn how to read some food labels at the grocery store on the product she's buying that will just make those tiny little changes but make big differences on their health overall. That's kind of my philosophy on and my approach and why I went about it differently.
What a lot of people listening here are, they're not professionals. They're just listening to say, okay, wow, look at this story like that Shelley went through. Like, how do I sort of approach what she did to make these changes? Because I don't have the time, right, in my own life. So listening to someone like yourself.
I also talk a lot about priorities. And when we don't have our health, none of the other priorities in our life matter. Soccer practice doesn't matter. Church doesn't matter. Homework doesn't matter. Career doesn't matter. If you don't have a healthy life and you don't put your health as a priority as far as preventative care, not meaning getting your annual checkups, but what are you eating every day? What are you reading every day? How are you stilling your mind? Are you getting sleep? Are you drinking water? These things are so simple, but if you don't make these things a priority, then all those other things that you deem prioritized in your life kind of fall to the wayside. So you never think your health is important until you're sick. And then that's all that matters. So when my husband almost died, nothing mattered but that. It didn't, nothing, all of our priorities went out the window. Our number one priority was to heal him. And so he didn't have this happen again. So I try to encourage people, before you have a tragic health scare or a chronic condition you're trying to cure, let's put that health a little bit higher on that priority list and get some preventative stuff going on so that it doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's great advice. And for people listening, I'm sure, me included, I want to know, like, hey, like, what's the most effective anti-inflammatory foods to incorporate into our daily diet or lifestyle or cooking?
Sure. So it's going to blow your mind how simple this is, but it's going to be a common answer, and you'll start nodding your head because everyone does. But things like leafy greens, because of the chlorophyll in them, because of the fiber in them. Also, probably the number one thing in my book is berries. So any fruit that ends in the word berry, especially blueberries, they are superfoods, and they just go in our body. And I tell people they act like little soldiers, and they go and fight all the free radicals in your body. They're constantly just going in your body and fighting. So get you a handful of blueberries and eat them every day. And they do wonderful, powerful things. There's so much healing power in food that people don't realize. But anti-inflammatory foods, definitely berries, leafy greens, even spices and herbs like cinnamon, cilantro, parsley, all of those are anti-inflammatory. Anything from a coconut is anti-inflammatory. We want fatty foods like salmon, walnuts. Any type of nuts and seeds are definitely anti-inflammatory. Think chia seeds, flax seeds, sesame seeds. Those are all anti-inflammatory. So any food that's high in antioxidants, that's a long word, and I have to say it a lot in my business. So I get tired of saying anti-inflammatory and antioxidants, but they're two important words in my career. Antioxidants are what go in our body and help build our cells to be healthy and strong. So these anti-inflammatory foods are rich in antioxidants. So I tell people, if they see either word, anti-inflammatory or antioxidant, because they work hand in hand, get those foods into your daily diet.
That's good to know, because that's what I try to stick to inadvertently. How about, like, I've read many times nightshade vegetables. I believe like peppers and potatoes and
tomatoes.
A lot more that you can rattle off. Of course, I was going to say, what are your stance on those? Like, are they typically inflammatory, as I've read or been suggested? And how much of a risk are too many of them?
Yeah, so I tell people try not to overcomplicate it. So you're not going to eat two potatoes a day. Well, you shouldn't be. You're probably not going to eat a whole bucket of cherry tomatoes every day, and same with peppers. So have them in moderation, but I have heard, and studies are showing, especially if you have things like rheumatoid arthritis where you have joint conditions, you probably want to steer away from them as much as possible because they can contribute to inflammation. If you do not have something going on in your body and you're not over consuming these products, they have health benefits. Like bell peppers, for instance, are very high in vitamin C. Vitamin C helps to boost our immune system, right? So it's like take the good with the bad. I don't think that we should be looking at a bell pepper as an inflammatory food. However, if you have a condition where you have a joint disease, definitely limit your amount of these foods that you consume.
Got it. Yeah. How about your take on supplements? I mean, a lot of people are supplementing, but when it comes to inflammation, maybe even your own husband and yourself in your own household, what's your take on supplements that combat maybe, chronic inflammation?
The misconception I see a lot with supplements is people are not supplementing, they're using them for primary purposes. Supplements are meant to supplement. They are not supposed to replace your nutritious eating. They are not magic pills. They are going to help you increase those vitamins that you might be lacking. So I am for them, but I am not a proponent of being dependent on them. We take curcumin, which is the component inside turmeric that's anti-inflammatory. So we take a curcumin tablet every single day. We have for 6 or 7 years now, and we see results from it. So it's kind of like an added on top of what we're already doing. I just don't think we need to rely on them to get our nutrients, our vitamins and our minerals. Try to get it from your food first. And then if you actually, like you said, supplement them, I think there can be a lot of advantages to them. But I also think you need to make sure you get a reputable one. You don't want to buy the cheap ones from stores because they have a lot of fillers in them. A lot of times the capsules are not made from good ingredients. Sometimes they're not even digestible, so you're just wasting your money. So do your research. You do get what you pay for with supplements. So I'm not against them. I just don't think you should rely on them for your vitamins and minerals consumption.
In terms of like what you're taking, like the effectiveness, like how is it changing you from what you're taking just on a small level?
Sure. So we take a few things. We take curcumin, which is anti-inflammatory, and I've noticed it really does help with my joint pain. I don't have a lot, but if I don't take it for, let's say, 2 weeks, I can notice, like, because I cook, so my hands are used a lot and they get tired. I'll notice, like, by the end of the week, if I hadn't taken it for a week or two, my hands are tired and I feel it, and I don't feel it when I take it. So I know it may be in my head, but I do think that there is something to that. What else do we take? Well, we just started taking, a supplement company reached out to me and asked me to collaborate with them. And I said, well, I got to try it first. And so we are starting to take quercetin, which is the antioxidant inside berries, basically. But I like the supplement company because there's nothing else in it. There are no fillers at all. So, and it's a vegetarian tablet. I'm very picky on what I put in my body, and companies approach me almost daily, and I turn them all down because I look at the product and I immediately say no, because what they're promoting healthier eating and or living, but what's in it is the opposite. So I just encourage all my listeners and my followers and my clients to read your labels. And you're going to know when you read it, you can't pronounce it, that it's probably not good to be in that supplement.
That's a good philosophy if you can't pronounce it. How about like if you had to summarize, like here are 5 things our listeners could do today to reduce inflammation in their lives?
Number 1, decrease the inflammatory food groups that are causing inflammation. Do you want me to tell you what those are really quick?
That'd be amazing. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So inflammatory food groups that we kind of adhere in the foods that I leave out of my recipes. I have a cookbook and I left all these ingredients out of my recipes. So the number 1 is refined oils. So we want to avoid those oils like vegetable, canola, soybean, sunflower. Even in America, the palm oil that's in like products and stuff, they're all refined. So we want to avoid those. as much as we can. If you were going to eliminate one food from your diet today to help reduce chronic inflammation and never eat it again, it would be that. And it's not just the oils we're cooking with, Joe. It's the oils that are in those ultra processed foods we're buying, the crackers, the frozen foods, the dressings, all of those things. I would say 80% of them have refined oils in them. So more companies are getting better at replacing the oils, but for now, because they're so cheap to make and people don't mind, people aren't smart yet, they're still putting them in the products. So when you know better, you do better. So that would be my number one. Number two, sadly, is dairy, processed dairy. So any dairy products at the grocery store, cheese, yogurt, sour cream, butter, milk, ice cream, all of those foods that come from a cow, the milk of a cow, over time, they just cause havoc on our body. And let me tell you why. So a cow has a baby, and this calf is going to become a cow, a 1-ton animal, in about 8 months. I live in the country and I'm surrounded by cattle farms, and I see these babies, and then 3 months later, they're like half the size of their mom. And that's because they are drinking this beautiful liquid that is meant to grow them quickly. We as humans, our average body weight, I think, is like 160 or something. We're not meant to consume that much. Now we're consuming it in droves. We're eating it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks. We're eating it at the parties. We're eating it on the weekends. And so I feel like it's just overconsumed. I'll never be the person that says, do not eat this food ever. I will never do that. I think everything is in moderation. If I'm at a girlfriend's house and she's having a charcuterie board, you can bet your sweet fanny that I'm going to have some cheddar cheese. Like, I love it. I'm not going to have it in my dishes at home on a Tuesday, and I'm not going to eat it when I order out, but I will enjoy it every now and then. So dairy would be number two. Number three would be gluten. Gluten in America is it is what it is. And people come at me all the time. Oh, we didn't have to do this 100 years ago. No, we didn't. And if you notice, people that travel to Europe and stuff, they don't have problem when they eat gluten because their wheat isn't sprayed with glyphosate. Ours is. So for the last, since the 60s, I think 58 or 60, they started spraying our wheat with glyphosate because we had a shortage of wheat products. We went on this bread craze and this pasta craze, and they couldn't keep up with demand. So they started spraying it with glyphosate to help grow it faster and to protect it from pests. So over time, now there's controversy where experts are saying, is it a gluten allergy or is it a glyphosate allergy? Doesn't matter. We shouldn't be consuming it on a daily basis. It just causes these little bitty micro tears in our digestive tract. And so our body has to go and repair those every time we eat it. And that causes inflammation. So that would be number three. Number four would be artificial sweeteners. Actually, I should put that as number two. So refined oils, eliminate them as fast as you can. Artificial sweeteners do the same. People don't understand how much artificial sweeteners are in our foods. So think diet soda, think sugar-free gum, sugar-free cookies, zero sugar desserts. All of those things have artificial sweeteners in them. Artificial sweeteners are exactly that. They are fake, they are synthetic, and they are causing a lot of health problems. They just deemed aspartame a carcinogen. So the World Health Organization just actually came out and finally admitted that it causes cancer. It's taken a long time, but so I would avoid that for sure. And then the other one would be just white refined sugar. No, that's not surprising to anybody. Sugar is just not great. Again, moderation. But if you can choose a healthier sweetener for your recipes, do that. I have lots of suggestions for that as well. But yeah, so those would be my food groups for inflammatory foods, to just really be, I'm not telling your listeners to never eat those again, except for the refined oils. Just be aware of how much you're consuming, and then that might answer some of your health questions.
No, that's great. And how about like for people who are into tech? Are there any advancements going on in nutrition and maybe dietary science that could maybe help the understanding and like you said, the management of this chronic inflammation, maybe tech, wearables? Is there anything that you've heard about on the horizon?
Not a lot. I will say there are apps out there that I actually love that you can scan food labels and it'll tell you what's in it that you should be heed warning to. It won't say it causes inflammation, but it'll tell you why you should avoid it. And so I like those apps a lot. I also am on the other side of that too. Why can't we go back to the way it was? Why can't we just use our instincts and just choose real food instead of chasing the next fad diet? because all the science will back all of these new diets. And then they come out 10 years later with all the health issues that these diets cause. It's a massive trend in the United States with all of these diets. About every 8 to 10 years, a brand new one surfaces. We're on the last couple of years of keto. So now something new, mark my word, in probably 2 years, a new diet's going to come out. It's just the way it happens. So in answer to your question, I'm not against tech. I think it's wonderful what they've done. There are so many good apps out there that if they work for you and it helps you stay accountable, good. On the flip side of that, don't forget to keep it simple and not overcomplicate it, and try to eat real whole food.
Yeah. How about when it comes to research? Are you reading any sort of studies that are showing more advances in how people are getting the message out to people?
Unfortunately, well, no. And this isn't a political show, and I'm not going to go there. Everything is connected: pharma, government, politics. It's all very connected. And at the end of the day, is our health their priority? No. So I love what science is doing. Things that have actually been proven are still not talked about because that would hurt certain industries. So it's hushed a lot. A lot of people have been shut down. A lot of very prominent holistic people that have proven things have been shut down. So I am supportive of the science behind all of it. And I think there needs to be more talk about it always, which is why I'm so passionate about it. Can they do better? Yes. Are they doing better? I think so, but there's still an agenda, and it makes me frustrated. And a lot of things in our country are very different than over in other countries because of the agenda. So I'm frustrated, and I'm excited that they are putting more attention on it. That's kind of not a very good answer, is it?
No. I think we are sort of starting to hear more people be vocal about what's going on, especially when it comes to kids, and the future of the children, especially. And it's very hard to find to imagine that would be a political thing, the health of like our children. So it's at least in my opinion, it's good to see voices come out in support of that. That's sort of where I see a lot of promise, that people are, whether they've been silenced before, okay, at least now they're being, they're doubling down. Like, hey, I'm not going away.
I love that. And I also think we need to educate the parents, right? Because it's not the kids' fault. They don't know. They're just following. So I try to put a lot of emphasis on parents and grandparents because the habit starts with them, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because kids mimic, right? So if we can get them to mimic good behavior,
They're little sponges.
Yes, exactly. So people like me, I'm learning a ton. For people listening that are like, hey, how do I find out more about Shelley? Resources you mentioned. There's a lot of very cool content on your website. What would be the best way to sort of get in touch with you, to follow you online on socials and things like that?
So my website has a lot of free resources. I've got some great blogs. Recipes are always rotating on my website every month. And my website is shelleycanhelp.com. So that's Shelley with an EY. So SHELLEY, canhelp.com. And I made it simple, which is why I named my business that, because I knew I wanted to help people, but I wasn't sure how. So and Shelley Can Help was available on every social platform. So that's where I am. Shelley Can Help. Instagram's probably my most active, but I'm on every platform at least 4 days a week. Instagram every day. And I just want to help people, just show them the very simple steps. I have a weekly newsletter, like an email that goes out. You can join that easily. It's free. And it's just kind of like, I like to picture it as me tapping you on the shoulder saying, hey, don't forget, do this thing. So you can just go to shelleycanhelp.com/join, or I think it's on the homepage as well.
Yeah, I'll make sure all those links are in the show notes for people who are listening. Of course. No, I mean, I thank you for taking the time today to share, again, your story, your husband's story. Very inspirational for people, for me listening, to say like, wow, I mean, you all are you're still young. But for all that to happen at such a young age for the two of you, it's remarkable, and that you've turned this into such a positive just lifestyle that you're living and helping others with. So thank you for your time, and great to talk with you and get to meet you.
Thank you so much, Joe. I hope your listeners, something resonates with one of them, then I'm winning. So thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it.